Throw the slack, you fucking moron!
Whoa!
What?
Ladies and gentlemen,
What's this?
welcome to Screen Share, a movie podcast about putting literally everything on a bagel.
Even
My name's-
sesame.
Even sesame and salt. My
And
name is Adam
garlic
Cook.
salt.
And garlic salt. And
And
oregano.
my name is Matthew Vries. First
And-
time podcaster.
First time. So, fun fact.
Yeah.
You are. We've had a guest before, but we've never had a guest host because I don't know if y'all can hear.
No.
It's a little quiet.
There's
not
no one
there's not a
farting in the microphone.
screeching, grating voice. That's too mean. I don't actually mean that.
Look, Calder, he's got a good voice for podcast. I should say he's got a good ass for podcast. Really flatulent, picks up on the mic well.
He puts the ass in podcasts. That's what they're always saying about him. But Calder, unable to be here for this episode, he was going to record. We were going to have a 3-boy P-cast, but Calder, on his honeymoon, he was still going to record at the hotel, but apparently the Wi-Fi is, as he said, bad.
And the energy of all three of us on one call would be too much to handle, I think, for the microphones.
We probably wouldn't talk about the movie, if we're being honest. But
No.
I'd like to try. We will find another time where we'll have all three of us on, maybe for a movie that's bad. That would be more
I've
fun.
heard Moonfall is bad.
I heard that also, but then I also heard some people be like, well, it's good if, like, you don't go in with any expectations. And it's like, that's a bad descriptor. That's a red flag.
Just don't think about it too hard, and it'll start making sense.
Yeah. You just have to turn your brain off, man. But this episode, of course, is about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Calder and I were each picked a comedy to cover last week and this week. Picked two movies that, like, are kind of like fringe comedies. Like last week, Brazil, more kind of like a surrealist, kind of like look into like maybe like it was more of a comedy of the time, but like looking at it now, it feels more like a commentary on society. It's less funny. This one, definitely funny,
but a little sad.
but also a little sad.
I was listening to your Brazil episode, and I haven't seen that movie, and it sounded like there was a lot of torture in it, and just like, I don't know, I wasn't getting the comedy.
Yeah, there's a lot of torture, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of lost dreams.
Actually, when you say it like that, it's really funny.
Yeah, that is really funny. In this movie, there is joke and funny, and most of the comedy in this movie, I think, just comes from it being silly, which I think then lets them also play the serious moments a lot easier, because it's not like they're taking a break from jokes to do so. It's like there's not really many jokes. There's just silly moments that kind of
Happen.
like it feels like they can coexist.
But I think that's part of the point too, when you have Waymond is there and he's just constantly making it goofy, even though it's kind of serious.
Yeah. He is both the silliest and the coolest parts a lot of the time. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I found in my research here is that originally they were going to cast Jackie Chan in that role, and he was going to be the lead character. But
and that it was like written for him.
Yeah. And you can kind of tell
a little bit, yeah.
The way that the action shots are done, and the character is like this lovely kind of almost family man. But yeah, they decided when he wasn't available that they're going to shift it to the wife's perspective. And I think, hot take, that was a good call.
Is that a hot take?
I don't think so. But you know what? All my takes are hot this episode.
Wow. That's what they say. All of Matt's takes are hot, whether they're popular or not.
Yeah, they're sexy takes.
They're sexy? Is that what you said?
Oh no.
No?
Delete that.
Okay.
No, I'm joking.
Well, since we're on the topic of the characters, let's touch on some of this cast.
It's star-studded.
It's star-studded. We've got Michelle Yeoh as our primary character, Evelyn Wang.
She did great.
Absolutely killed it. Full confession, honesty.
Yeah.
In the first like 2 scenes, where it's just like
She's doing
her,
taxes.
like panicking about taxes.
Yeah.
And then like not listening to Joy try to tell her something for like 5 minutes. I was like, I'm not really seeing it. What, like, because I was going into this with like
High
this
expectations.
one, all the awards,
Yeah.
has all the praise. I've never heard anyone say anything negative about it. So I was like, just because like I just saw like a woman acting stressed, and I was like, there's nothing. I've seen this many a time before. I'm not seeing it. But then as the movie progresses, it just like it doubles down,
Every
triples
time.
down.
Yeah.
And so Matt and I watched this together. Matt had seen it before many times. It was my first time, and Matt I kept reacting to the film and what was happening in the film, and then Matt would be like, just wait.
It keeps escalating somehow.
Yeah, he's like, it gets better.
You're at this point in the movie, I think, in the first act, everything, where it's just escalating and escalating, and you're like, the movie must be done soon. And then you get that big bwah and like the letters, and it says Act 1, and you're like, oh, that's the third way. Like, I'm 1/3 of the way through this movie right now. How can they keep going with this? And then Act 2 happens. You're like, it can't keep going, and then it keeps going.
Yeah. It honestly, this movie, this is going to sound like a weird comparison, but like this movie kind of exists the same way that I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy of movies is.
All right.
Where you watch the first one, you're like, what the hell? This is crazy. What's going on?
They can't do this 2 more times.
Yeah. And then they do it
better
again, but better. Raise the stakes, make everything way.
They
like,
throw that guy
bigger.
off that tower.
Yeah, they make you realize everything is on the line.
Mm-hmm. They kick some helmets and break some toes.
And then you're like, what? What are they even gonna do? How are they gonna stick this landing? And then third one they do, and it's maybe the best.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm not gonna get into arguments about Lord of the Rings right now.
No.
But like, the key word is arguably. But this movie's very much that, where like it truly keeps topping itself. I did like a skim through just to like refresh myself on which plot points weave into which plot points.
Yeah.
And I was like surprised to realize how much of what I remembered the movie being actually being in like the last 20, 30 minutes. Yeah. Where I was like, it felt like what I realized was really the last half hour of the film. In my memory, having watched it like 2 days ago, I thought it was like the entire second half, and it's a 2.5 hour long movie basically. So I was like, man, and it's not that the ending dragged. It just felt like it was so.
It had a lot of content.
Important. Yeah, it was so dense, especially since they're not just wrapping things up.
Can I ask what your favorite act was? 1, 2, or 3? Everything, Everywhere, or All at Once? Because All at Once is when the pot breaks, right? Her mind breaks and she becomes like her daughter.
Yeah, that's Act 2, right?
I think Act 2 is Everywhere. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Everything, Everywhere, but isn't... Or because All at Once title card comes
when
up...
When they're rocks, right?
Once she's figured it out. Because it shows up... I'm pretty sure all 3 title sequences pop up when she's at the table with her taxes.
But
They're just at different times.
That's true.
But I know All at Once pops up once they're in the timeline that they kind of settle in, where they just went home. She didn't punch Deirdre.
No.
They just went home, filed the taxes.
Oh yeah, she didn't punch her in that one.
Yeah, because when I was watching it, I was like a little confused as to
how
it wasn't hard to keep track of timelines, but it was hard to keep track of which timelines
you're in
were certain timelines. Like I was like, there's the main one that I'm still kind of stuck on is there's the one where it ends with Evelyn and Deirdre on the bench outside the laundromat.
So that's
and they share a vape pen.
We can call that the Chinese New Year timeline, I guess.
Yeah, but the first time I watched it, I thought that was the same timeline as
the main one.
As the main one,
No.
where it ends with like them having the conversation in the parking lot.
Well, no, that is the same one.
But that's what I thought. But then in like rewatching the end bit, when it's going through the timelines and she's talking about like it like ends with that come together bit where it like shows Evelyn and Deirdre in the hot dog finger universe putting their fingers in each other's mouths. Then there's like the Rakakui.
Yeah.
Him getting on her head and them running.
I think.
And then they do all those. And they show those separately is my thing.
Yeah.
So I assumed it was the same.
So.
But I guess then I think like she went outside and it kind of ends with her on the bench with Deirdre. But then when would she then go have the conversation with
her daughter?
Joy?
So I think the main universe, the one that you start off in, is the one with the shootout, and where she's kind of doing the staircase scene, where she's learning to fight like Waymond.
And I think that's the one that Joe Butapaki is actually.
Yeah, with the bagel is swirling.
That's like main Joe. I know Joe Butapaki's all of them.
Yeah, but that's
like
Prime. We'll call her JoJo Prime.
Yeah. Which
Jojo
I guess
Prime.
if you haven't seen the movie, I think if you haven't seen the movie, you should watch it before listening to this personally.
Absolutely.
I honestly think that about most of the episodes. But for those of who don't know, Joe Butapaki, big bad, taking over all these universes.
We have maybe as like a refresh for people who haven't seen it, don't want to watch it. They should, but in general, we have the main family of Evelyn, Waymond, and Joy, and they're kind of a dysfunctional family that's falling apart. They're on hard times, and Waymond, the husband, is going to be filing for divorce soon. It's kind of like a back burner event for the movie that they show you, but our main character, Evelyn, isn't aware of yet. And her life is, she's like very ADHD character. She's got a lot of like little talents, but she doesn't pursue anything, and it ends up being just a mess. And the IRS, I think, is coming after her business. And she's approached fantastically by her husband, but he claims to be Alpha Waymond from another universe.
Waymond from the Alphaverse.
Yes, and he brings her on like this adventure of learning how to verse jump and gain the abilities and connect to different versions of herself throughout the multiverse. And by expanding her mind into that, she has to fight this Jojo Tubaki villain who ends up being another version of her daughter. And that's the overall kind of gist.
Evelyn as a character is like fully unable to be present at any point.
Yeah.
Like she's
zoning out.
Especially in the beginning bit, she's zoning out, but then she's like, once she snaps back in, she truly cannot
focus on anything else.
Yeah, she's just go. Like, she's getting like audited by the IRS, and she's aware of that because she's getting the taxes ready, but she's not really like thinking about the fact
Yeah.
that she's getting audited by the IRS.
She's just,
she just
there
sees
with
it
the
as, like,
receipts. She
the
doesn't
next thing to
understand
do.
the consequences if she doesn't do it properly.
Yeah, she kind of just like fully is on autopilot at all times.
And you might think,
which
IRS, this is a boring scene. Jamie Lee Curtis is the auditor, and she has a bunch of butt plug trophies on her desk.
yeah,
And it develops
which look
further.
like butt plugs, and you're like, huh, those look like butt plugs. That's probably the joke.
And it's like that
But then
Chekhov's
later-
gun thing, right? Where if you have a gun on the mantle in a movie, it's going to come off and get shot. It's
Yeah.
Chekhov's butt plug in this sense.
Yeah, because you see that and you're like, that's gonna go up someone's butt probably,
And it does.
then it does
Yeah.
actually, and then also a little consolation prize. I believe a trophy, like a
A
regular,
regular
trophy,
trophy
gets
looks
also-
like it too, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not sure where we see that in the background, but I'm sure it's there.
I'm sure it's there in some frame, but that I'm like, if it's anything like, here's a
That's what I'm
bowling
thinking.
trophy.
Adam's holding up a bowler on a very large sphere.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it would be very pleasant.
Yeah, there's a lot of places to
Caught.
get like that caught.
But hey, I
Oh,
guess if you're
yeah.
verse jumping and you're becoming yourself from another universe and you leave, you're just kind of leaving alternate you with the consequences.
Yeah, but I feel like you'd still feel it.
Oh,
would
you'd
you
for
not?
sure feel it. Yeah.
So, like, my thing is, like, I feel like the only explanation is that they've got to be used to it by now. Like,
Yeah.
they've done worse, probably.
Probably. So, in this movie, to jump to another multiverse version of yourself and to kind of learn their life experiences, get their memories, learn their skills, you have to do something that they describe as verse jumping, where you have to do something completely improbable that you would never do. And the more improbable it is, the further you can slingshot yourself away from the universe that you're from, or the multiverse you're from. So if
Yeah.
I want to go to a universe where I'm like a rock star, then I would have to go to slingshot myself far enough back that I would learn the skills and like get to a point where I could be a rock star. So I'd have to do something pretty intense. So they do things like paper cuts in between their fingers, eating a tube of chapstick, like we said, trophy up the butt.
Eating gum at the bottom of a desk.
Yeah, chewing gum off the bottom of a desk. Something like that, just to slingshot yourself into another multiverse.
Yeah. And the way you helped describe, like, while watching was you were like, it's not... Because at first I thought it was like... Because he eats the chapstick,
eats it, yeah.
and then the next one we see is that he eats the gum at the bottom of the
Yeah,
desk.
and it's not always
I'm pretty
eating.
sure that's the next
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so I was under the impression, I was like, oh, so to change to a specific one, he has to, like, eat something chewy, but you were like, no, it's just, like,
Something you would never
whatever
do.
is the most absurd
Yeah.
in the moment.
It just happens that the first... Well, it seems like the first two are eating things, but really we see Evelyn look at the instructions on the back of the divorce papers, and they say stuff like, put your shoes on the opposite feet, think about being in the janitor closet. So the improbable event, she doesn't have to go very far, is just swapping her shoes. So she just has to
Yeah.
go like 10 minutes into the past and making a different decision or something.
Yeah. Which it's a decision that was like so recently
Yeah.
in the past, but it is such a worse universe.
Right? They get
Because
assaulted.
Waymond, Alpha Waymond even describes it as a burner universe. Where
Yeah.
he's like, this is just a burner universe, it doesn't matter anyway. Which, like, cool.
Yeah.
But that is also still a
Yeah.
universe. If you get into like the ethics, I guess, of it,
They're
like
killing a
that's
lot
still
of
a
people.
universe with people.
And
yeah.
given when we see the Chubaki, when we see
Jobu Tapaki.
Jobu Tapaki, when we see her coming in and exploding people into confetti and all the crazy stuff that she's doing, she's only going after the people surrounding Evelyn. So maybe it's not destroying that entire universe, it's just destroying a couple people while she's chasing Evelyn Prime.
Yeah, it's just her going after Evelyn
Yeah.
Prime. What I did find interesting is that, like, in an attempt to find Evelyn Prime, she also just kills a bunch of Evelyns.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Most of them.
Which I still find interesting that it's like, because we do find out eventually that Joy is mostly just like looking for the Evelyn that will help her to like realize that there is meaning, or realize how to get out of this,
or
like
just
everything bagel.
Someone that
mindset.
is going to see what she's experiencing in her life, fully understand it, and then embrace her anyway, even when things are bad. So we see that at the end, the Jobu is kind of aiming to end her life, commit unalive, and Evelyn makes a full attempt to know where she's coming from by destroying her own mind and becoming what Jobu turned herself into by experiencing hundreds and thousands of multiverses all at the same time and splitting her mind across the multiverse. And in the end, she just had to let her daughter come back to her. And kind of worked out, I think. New starting point.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's worth saying, at least for me in my interpretation, I don't think Joy or Jobu Tupaki, I'm just going to say Joy, though.
We can say Joy.
I don't think Joy wanted Evelyn to just like
die with her,
see an experience and die with her. I think she wanted her to see it, experience it, understand it, but then come up with a solution. But like that's not what happens.
No,
because Evelyn doesn't have the answer to
everything,
like how to go through, how to experience everything, and how to live life.
When you can be anything at any point, why choose to be you in that present moment and not you living some other life?
Yeah. And it takes Evelyn realizing that she genuinely, like, it's interesting how much of the resolution of this film comes from the universe that is fictional Michelle Yeoh with fictional Ki Kwan, still playing Evelyn and Waymond, but like really they're just playing it themselves. But like Waymond's speech there where he's talking about how like
line.
Yeah, in the universe where they both found immense success without each other, and it's the universe where Evelyn said earlier in the film, like, I saw my life without you and it was amazing. But in that universe, both of them are like, man, but I would love to see the universe where none of this happened and we're just doing taxes and laundry together. And like, I know that's not the exact quote, but like it takes, I just find it interesting that is kind of the key turning point, and it's kind of a timeline in the movie that ultimately doesn't like
get resolved. Aside
from that, it doesn't really like affect anything. It's kind of just like a window into seeing
success,
the ideal, but then like also it allows her to come back to Earth and be like, but that's just another life. Yeah. Like that's no better or worse than the one that I have.
And I think it's the universe that really drives home the point that she learns, which is kind of the solution to Jobu's issue or Joy's issue, which is that the universe you're in is going to be what you make of it. And even if you're in the bad conditions or in a bad time, you can find little things, and that's what Waymond's doing the whole movie, putting the googly eyes on things, which I realized are the inverse of the bagel. So at one side, it's kind of the opposite metaphor of, finding the little things in nothing instead of everything in one place. But it's also the color inverse, where it's a white circle with a black dot instead of a black circle with a white center.
True.
I wonder if that was on purpose.
That's a great point. Yeah, because the googly eyes, I knew that they were significant going in, but then it was just Waymond being a goof. But then, like, it really is significant because, like you said, Waymond, kind of in every universe for the most part, is but mainly in our like main universe that we follow. He's really just looking for the best, and it's why him filing for divorce is so devastating, because he just talks about like, you look at me and it's like you don't even see me or don't want me. I like try so hard to connect, and you're just constantly somewhere
says
else.
You didn't even have to say it. Because he can tell by the way she acts. And when he's proposing the divorce and stuff, he even references, I guess, some of their friends who almost got divorced and it improved their marriage. So I think he's just looking to say, hey, things are bad and I need you to see that, and this is the only way I can.
Yeah. There's no way to communicate with her unless it is an extreme.
Yeah.
Like, but he also understands that it might end the simple way, which is that they just do get divorced. But I think it's a risk that he's like, neither of us are happy right now. So like, maybe this fixes it, but regardless, it'll be better than what's currently happening. And constantly throughout the movie, Evelyn is like, when she's distracted and is only seeing that Waymond is doing something, but not really hearing or understanding what's happening, she'll constantly be like, my husband is probably screwing this up right now.
She doesn't respect him.
Like, over and over. Yeah, she doesn't respect him. She always assumes. She has a comment early in the movie where she says, like, I worry that your father wouldn't have made it very far without me.
I think she takes a lot of the responsibility in her own mind into her own hands. Like, she is running this show. She's doing all of the work. She's making sure that this place doesn't fall apart, and Waymond is putting, googly eyes on things and moving customer stuff around because it's happier upstairs, and doing silly things. And then throughout the movie and more towards the end, he has that line where he says, this is how I fight. And I think he's talking about their unhappiness in their marriage and saying, well, you're tackling the issues that we have physically of money and customers and maintaining the house. I am fighting for our happiness, and he's trying to make every day and every moment kind of a little bit special. And then when she learns how to do that, that's when I think she has that character change.
Yeah, once she realizes that happiness to an extent is a choice, like she completely shifts as a character, and that really is kind of the big turning point, which kind of coincides with the Ke Huy Quan version of Waymond, like, monologue, and a lot of other universes kind of merging together. They do a lot of like montage bits which incorporate all of the timelines, and they're all kind of moving through the same beats together, but it helps reinforce all of these things. But on the Evelyn, like, kind of not really seeing Waymond as doing anything but harming their situation, like, almost every time that she talks about him screwing things up, he is actively digging them out of a hole that she put them in. And it's not until the end that she sees that and realizes, yes, I am giving everything that I can, but so is he. And me not seeing that is making it harder on me, because I'm not even letting him help me.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of forcing him into that. And I think, I might be wrong, but I feel pretty confident in this, that the very first scene is before we even get into Evelyn doing taxes and stuff. It's the first shot of the movie. It's like a slow zoom on a mirror where they're doing karaoke, and it's just the three of them. I'm like 90% sure that that's from the timeline where Evelyn has the talk with Joy in the parking lot, and then she says, we can do whatever we want.
The Chinese
and
New Year
in my
timeline?
mind, no. Or I guess. It depends on if those are the same one or not.
I think they are, because she's wearing the same, like, red cardigan thing.
Yeah. Because And I just imagine she goes, "We can do whatever we want," and then Joy's like, "Can we just do karaoke,
Nah.
just the three of us?"
Oh,
and then
that's
they're
a
like,
good
"Okay,
point.
yeah."
And then it maybe loops.
Yeah, and then that's kind of like showing
Yeah.
the ending at the beginning, but when you're just watching it at the beginning, you just see a happy family, and then it does a hard cut, and it's like, actually, they're not very
This
happy, it turns
movie
out.
is filled with so many like little shots or little technical details that make it really, really good. The beginning on a rewatch is so nice. Just seeing, you see kind of the whole premise of the movie in the first 5 seconds of that mirror shot of them being like a super happy family, singing karaoke, having a blast, and like the slow pan out as the mirror kind of cracks a little bit, and you see this super messy apartment, which I found out was based on one of the director's grandma's apartment. And it's just messy, and Evelyn's stressed, and there's tax papers all over the place, and Waymond is running around, and it's just chaos. There's soup boiling over, and Joy comes in, and she has relationship problems. She's bringing over her girlfriend, and her mom is there. There's conflict there, and it's just everything is thrown at you right at the beginning in the first 5 seconds.
Everything is everywhere all at once.
That's not going to be synced up at all.
No, it's not. Unless I sync to you.
Nah.
Anyway.
All right. So that's kind of like a recap of the general overview. What are your thoughts on the movie?
I love it.
Okay,
and I think mostly, because when we watched this together, we watched it perhaps maybe not, perhaps under the influence of something that would mean that I'm not at a full brain capacity when watching or thinking about it. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But so we finished, and I think mostly my response was me having a hard time articulating my thoughts.
Yeah.
I feel like it was more I didn't know how to articulate my thoughts, less so that I didn't remember what happened.
Right.
But we ended the movie, and Matt was like, "So what did you think?" And I was like, "It was good. Definitely have to watch it again."
Yeah, I looked over, and for the audience, this is one of my favorite movies. And I look over, and Olivia is like barely awake, and Adam is like looking like he's really trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, shoot, this didn't land, because like I saw this movie and I teared up, and I was like, and it was hilarious. It was good.
It did really make me wish that I saw it in the theaters, which I really wanted to do at the time. I just like couldn't. I don't know.
Didn't get around to it.
Just, yeah, sometimes that just happens with movies, unfortunately. But I really wish that I did, because I feel like it would have been nuts to watch with like a room full of people that also didn't know what was going on. But it did. I did love it. Even like it does also help that I've kind of like rewatched some moments, and I've watched some videos on it since, which has helped a bit.
Yeah.
But it's the main thing that I did know for sure when we finished the movie, which I wrote down, which has only strengthened in my mind since then, is that the movie commits really, really hard to everything that it's doing, regardless of how weird or absurd it is. And because it commits so hard, and because it executes every aspect of it to about as well as you could possibly execute it, that's what makes it work kind of perfectly.
I fully agree with that.
Visually, like the sound, the music, the transitions, the acting, like the concepts, a multiverse or a time travel thing, always dangerous territory, because it just invites kind of like
plot holes.
This doesn't make sense. Yeah, plot holes.
Which I do have one gripe that I don't know the answer to. I couldn't find an answer to. I'm not sure if this is our hot take section. Not that all my takes aren't hot.
We here. Let's do that in a moment, because I've got one also.
All right.
But yeah, I just think there's so much room for error when doing a multiverse or like time travel, and it kind of, I think, hits the perfect balance of giving us information about how it works and information into like different timelines and how different things affect each other, but without going so much into that that it's like, okay, now you've given me enough detail to be like, well, now that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It kind of finds a perfect balance where I'm like, I understand what's going on, but I'm also not like going to keep questioning until there's a plot.
I think if they focus too much on one alternate universe and like really tried fleshing out like maybe the Alpha verse where it all started and like how this technology works and blah blah blah, I think you would get into this spiral of creating more questions that need answering than what we need.
That's a great point, because I kind of forgot that like when they showed the Alpha verse and it wasn't just Alpha Waymond talking through regular Waymond.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I'm from the Alphaverse.
And he's got the headset.
Saw the Alphaverse.
And he's in the Matrix.
All his friends
out of the
in
Matrix.
the van. But like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, we're probably going to spend some time here.
No, not at all.
But like, aside from like once in a while going there just to give some context to the main timeline or the main timelines that are very similar, like,
I think there's
we don't really
moments
go there
in total. I think there's the introduction when you first see him there. I think there is when he's retelling what happened to his Evelyn and his Joy and how she became the Jobu Tupaki, and
Jobu Tupaki, I think.
and his Evelyn passed away. And then the third one is when Jobu attacks, and then that's it.
Well, when Jobu attacks main Evelyn, there's a brief scene, but then there's when Jobu attacks
the Alphaverse
and kills them.
Yeah.
So technically 4, but honestly the two middle ones kind of happen
same.
pretty back to back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even really think about the fact that if this movie did go, all right, we're gonna like follow Alpha Waymond for a bit.
It's kind of unnecessary.
Or like follow Jobu Tupaki trying to find Alpha Waymond. It would just distract.
Right, and then you start instead of focusing all your world building time in the movie on Evelyn's alters, like her other multiverse counterparts, and how they are affecting the current timeline she's in, and her jumping between them quickly. You spend all of that time developing another full universe and like, what is going on here? Are the trees made of mushrooms for some reason? Why are we in an RV?
Yeah.
It just kind of leaves those questions open to you. It's kind of post-apocalyptic, and you kind of get the gist that
there's a sign that's spray painted that says Hail Bagel,
Hail
which
Bagel.
is just like sowing seeds. Like,
like maybe Jobu.
The level of restraint was really important, I think. A lesser, like, honestly, if I could absolutely see this movie getting made and like them doing that, and then a story coming out and being like, apparently studio execs came in and said they needed to flesh out the other universes to bring more lore. Like, but it's like, the lore is not really important.
Do we need
What's important is following
lore?
Evelyn.
Not really. We get it from the first couple shots.
Yeah, like that's the other thing. They use the things that are like
small jokes,
quote unquote, too silly.
Yeah.
They use the perfect amount.
And on a rewatch, I noticed every kind of big joke or like thing that you wouldn't expect is brought up a little bit earlier in the movie. Like Raccacoonie is brought up and referenced. Like, wouldn't that be, or that movie Ratatouille? No, it's with the raccoon on his head and he brings him around, and then it actually shows up to be a multiverse, and like all little references like that they bring back.
Yeah. It's not just like one-off jokes. They commit to them, but they also don't let them overstay their welcome. It's just a very well-balanced and well-curated movie, and everything feels like it has a purpose.
Yeah. It's like they're doing a lot at once, but it's a slow ramp, and the pace is, you can kind of maintain and keep up with it because they're keeping the universes that they introduced as well as the new ones and like doing little flashes to them. So you're kind of like, I recognize that, or that was referenced in a joke, so that I connect with that now.
Yeah. and it feels like you are like in on the jokes. Like there's the point where Evelyn like tries to like become super powered so she can fight Jobu Tapaki.
Yeah.
But then she's like just going like this, and then it's revealed that she's in the Hot Dog Fingers universe that was kind of referenced earlier a little bit.
I learned a fact about that one. That the Hot Dog Fingers were practical, like actual rubber gloves, and when they did the kind of makeout scene between Jamie Lee Curtis and and Michelle, it was so intense, and they committed so hard to the bit that Jamie Lee Curtis came out covered in bruises because she got slapped with the hot dog fingers so many times.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of stories like that from this.
It just seems like
movie,
a fun
like
set. And there's some things I want to talk about later that kind of add to that. And a lot of that has to do with how they did the technical effects for this movie and how very little of the movie is CGI. It's almost all practical effects or, you know, in certain moments, edited images of Evelyn. But I get the prime example I think of is right at the beginning when she gets pulled into the janitor's closet and she's like sucked down the hallway and her arms are flailing and she's screaming and her hair's blowing and then she's like stabilizes in the closet. That was a practical shot they did.
And then they use like the shattered glass.
The shattered glass wasn't practical. But but the whole getting pulled into the closet, they just tied a rope to an office chair and pulled her back and blowed a leaf blower on her.
And then sped up that
footage.
Yeah, there's so much. I'm pretty sure there's like some pretty good behind the scenes stuff of this movie, which is pretty awesome to see.
I'm sure there's lots of confetti that they had to clean up from Jobu exploding so many people.
Yeah. All of the VFX for the whole film were done by 9 people.
I heard that.
And that includes the 2 directors.
And most of it was done by 5 people,
the Daniels.
Right? And none of them went to school for any sort of VFX.
Yeah, it was a core group of 5 people, a total of 9, and none of them went to VFX school. They all were self-taught, which is insane, because the effects in this movie look better than 90% of VFX.
Yeah, and considering this movie came out right around when Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, the other more prominent multiverse movie at the time, so considering they both came out at the same time, this is by far a much better done film. And I think a lot of that has to do with the less Marvel-y kind of technical effects where they stray away from overusage of, you know, the sound stages and the CGI over everything. I think that I saw a quote from one of the Daniels saying on set and even in the technical development of the movie, they had a phrase that they would say to themselves, which was less Marvel, more Ghostbusters. Which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. Less original Ghostbusters, I'm assuming. I guess they hadn't...
More original Ghostbusters, less Marvel.
Yeah. Because, actually, the newer Ghostbusters are, like, okay in that regard. I haven't seen the new one, but...
I've heard it's fine.
But yeah, I mean, looking at this movie compared to, like, a Doctor Strange or, like, a Marvel or even, like, some Star Wars or just, like, almost any big studio thing that's being released now, it's just, like, okay, I don't... Have you... This is tangent alert. We'll try to, like, keep
I'll reel you back in
to a
if
minimum.
We go too far.
Have you seen... How much of the live-action Avatar have you seen?
None.
Okay.
And I'm a big Avatar fan.
Yeah, same. I saw the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And oh man, it's so hard to keep going.
Right.
But the problem with it, Drew Gooden has an excellent video on it. He said a lot of things that I agree with. But a big thing with that show is that they show very little restraint, which we kind of talked about being a strength of this movie. But also they kind of take the easy way with a lot of things, which this movie also doesn't do. But like a big problem with that show is that they seem to have a problem with main characters having any sort of flaws or making any wrong decisions.
Which makes them somehow you're trying to make this character super interesting and like relatable in a sense, but by making them flawless, you make them completely unrelatable.
Yeah. And flaws are what make characters relatable.
Yeah.
So to be like, to take all of that away makes them not interesting. This movie does the complete opposite. Our main character
is super
for like
flawed,
the first half of the movie it has like nothing but flaws. In fact, it is an important part of her character that she is very flawed.
Yeah.
And like there's even a point where Waymond basically is like, the reason you are so special is because you are really the least.
Yeah, you're good. You're good at nothing. You tried so many things and didn't pursue any of them. So you have infinite branches is the kind of idea. You have the most launching off points throughout your life than any other Evelyn, which makes her a better vessel for opening her mind to the multiverse because she's connected to it more than any other Evelyn.
And it kind of ties perfectly into like one of the biggest themes of the film, which is like kind of a push against nihilism. Like you would think hearing that, oh, you're so bad at everything, like you've pursued so many things and not succeeded.
Yeah.
Like gut reaction, that's like, oh, so I failed.
Suck. Yeah.
Like that is bad. That is horrible. In that case, this is like kind of not worth living for. Maybe this is the worst.
Imagine being the
timeline
Evelyn
because I
who's
failed.
only like slightly one off from this one.
Yeah, who's kind of.
I guess
good at
that would
one
just be
thing.
the Chinese New Year timeline, where the only difference is
which
that
I guess
she didn't
went okay.
break the laundromat or didn't punch the IRS agent.
Yeah, but like what the film really shows is that like no, actually, you never giving yourself permission to fully pursue something, like that doesn't mean that it's not worth living. It means that you have the most potential.
Yeah, you still have
like
potential, even though you haven't done anything yet. And one of the one of the things I read from the directors is that originally it was supposed to just be a metaphor for ADHD. And that she was more connected to the multiverse because she had ADHD. And then they decided against that and just decided to have this character have ADHD, but have a better explanation as to why she's connected to this universe.
And in like going down that road and researching it, one of the directors, Daniel Kwan, found out that he had he had undiagnosed ADHD. Which
the call's coming from inside the house.
Exactly. It kind of makes sense that you would kind of make a film kind of surrounding these themes and then be like, huh.
I bet that happens to a lot of people.
I guess
who
it is
do
like
creative writing and stuff where they make, it's like in D&D when someone makes a self-insert character as their first character and then it has like all of their problems of their life. But in some way it's like makes you stronger or something.
I mean, there was like a musical, or it was a songwriting like round table with a bunch of people a while back, and Billie Eilish was on it, and she talked about how when she wrote What Was I Made For the Barbie movie, that while she was writing it, she was like, I'm just writing about Barbie.
And then she found it relatable halfway through writing it.
Well, that she finished it and then was listening to it and was like, I think this might be about me. And like, I think that simply must be like a very common creative revelation to be like, wait a second, I didn't even realize how much what I'm creating applies directly to me. Yeah. Which is kind of when the best art is created. It's why, like, when so much stuff is created for an audience, it's like a lot of the time it flops because you're trying to please everyone. Really, you should be making art. The thing is, like Billie Eilish and Daniel Kwan and other Daniel Scheinert.
I just call them the Daniels, if I remember. If not, I call them those director guys.
Yeah. They weren't, like, trying to create something necessarily knowing that, like, it was very personally them. It kind of just happens that way. But, like, that really is when the best stuff is made. Because this is, like... Awesome. And whenever... I've seen a lot of, like, ranking all of the best picture winners from the last 15 years or whatever. Always this is high up there.
Yeah.
So it's had some staying power. I know at the time, like,
it was
right when it won a lot of awards, I think just a lot of people were like, it's a good movie, but I don't get why it's getting all these Oscars.
Yeah.
But, like, now removed from it, people are like, no, that
was a good movie.
That was.
It's just, I think it's approachable to larger audiences, which makes a lot of a certain sector of the Oscar watching crowd angry, because I feel like sometimes with some Oscar movies, they are very creative and artistic and make you think very hard to get the message, and then when you do get it, you feel smart and good. This one, it's not an incredibly hard message or movie to follow, but it does everything nearly perfect. And in that way, it reaches a wider audience, which doesn't necessarily make it a better movie than the one that's a little bit harder to follow, but it makes it more approachable and still well made.
Yeah, exactly. It's. I think it also came out at kind of a perfect time.
Yeah.
Because
Multiverse of Madness.
Well, because multiverses were in at the time. I mean, literally, Daniel Kwan
Spider-Verse.
did an interview where he was like, "We were coming up with this concept for years, like as early as 2010, but then Into the Spider-Verse comes out, and apparently they were like, shit." They're beating us to it, and then apparently, like, season 2 of Rick and Morty also had a bunch of things that they were like, we came up with that, and they did it first. But, like, that kind of just happens. So, but it is impressive for them, despite them kind of. I do think this was kind of like the I guess the swan song of multiverse popularity, at least in my mind, because I think people are kind of done with it. People are still excited for the next Spider-Verse movie, obviously, just because those movies are really good.
But that's kind of like a storyline with an established universe. It's not like this is a new movie doing multiverse, because we kind of get it.
Yeah, and this was kind of like the peak of it, and then also kind of
I think
the
this
end
is
of it.
for sure the best multiverse story.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Spider-Verse is well animated and a great story and has awesome acting and art. But its multiverse system is pretty bare bones. Not that this one is super developed, but it showed it pretty well.
I do feel like the strengths of this movie are very similar to Spider-Verse in that, yes, it's about the multiverse, but that's not really the focus. Really, the focus is the characters.
It's like telling a story with a multiverse in it.
Yeah, like in Spider-Verse, it's not like, whoa, there's so many crazy multiverses, we're gonna cover them all. It's like, there's a lot of
infinite.
I think Spider-Verse kind of like indulges in it a little more than this movie does.
A little too hard,
just because
Spider-Verse 2.
Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse does, where it's like, here's Donald Glover, here's the Spider-Man from the game, and like doing things like that. This movie, I think the most it does is it does that one bit where it's like, it's like 12 universes per frame, where it's like just cycling through them.
You can watch like a slowed down version of that, and it's intense how many they edited, how many different frames of Michelle Yeoh they shot and edited. You can see some where they didn't quite finish it, and you have just a screenshot of her with the Zoom call with 4 people where they're editing it live.
That's funny.
It's still in the shot.
But like that's the most that they do it though. Like the focus is not like similar how in Spider-Verse the focus is fully on Miles and who Miles is and Miles' relationship with his parents and with his friends. And like in this movie it's very much Evelyn's relationship with her husband and her daughter and her tax agent and like
for some reason,
and herself, really. Like a lot of the movie, I mean, at the beginning of her talk with Joy in the parking lot, Joy is literally like, listen, I'm great, you're figuring your shit out, but, and then goes into like everything that's wrong, but like she kind of points out that like Evelyn kind of has a whole singular arc in the movie. She also has an arc with Joy and with Waymond and with like everything, but she also just has an arc with herself where she kind of just realizes that she's shutting everyone out kind of in an attempt to gain control of her life, but like the control isn't really being spent anywhere. It's not like that control is like giving her more opportunities or like making a better life for her family. It's really just keeping her just above water. And like yeah, I don't know. I just really think that the characters, I mean, I was going to say this is true with most media, but it's really not. And I think it should be, is that the characters are the focal point. Like, that's why the original Star Wars movies are so good. It's because the characters are the focal point.
Had to tie it into Star Wars.
Hey, I got to bring it. But, like, those original movies,
I think it's just
about,
like a well-rounded, dynamic character.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you have, in that case of the live-action Avatar, you have a perfect character to start. When you take a character like Sokka, who in the original show has flaws, he has gaps in his knowledge and areas to improve, and you take those away, you just kind of like get this mannequin of a character who's like at the finish line already. And where do they grow? Is it just in strength? Then that's kind of boring.
I mean,
guess.
it's really all that they gain is they move further along the timeline of the story is really the unfortunate thing. Which, just a side note, which is one of the most frustrating things about that show, because somehow they like almost perfectly cast all of the roles, but
didn't that guy pretend to be native or something?
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, I heard that from somebody. I don't know if that's true. Cut that.
But like, I don't know if that's true or not, but he does look and sound like Sokka. But like, I've seen a lot of comments online about people watching interviews and about multiple actors in that show being like, they're more like their characters in interviews than they are in the show, and that's just because it's poorly written. But
I agree with that.
Apparently they've got new writers for season 2, which is exciting, but we'll see.
That's good.
Anyway, back to the movie at hand.
To talk a little bit about some fun facts here, if that's okay.
For sure, absolutely.
These are going to have to do with casting at first. So I've got here, apparently the Daniels who made Swiss Army Man, they love Daniel Radcliffe, and they wanted him in this movie, but he couldn't do it. Damn. So I wanted to ask you who you think he would have been casted as if he actually got in. I think we can assume none of the main cast. Maybe
the Rakakuni guy.
I think that's what my guess was as well when I was thinking about that. Rather him or... Actually, I don't know who else he could have been.
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of where I'm like...
Yeah.
Him being there wouldn't mess with anything.
Yeah. And it makes sense for who they know him as.
Yeah. It makes sense. He would play it well, I think.
Yeah. And it's kind of Swiss Army Man-esque. The next one, this is just a fun fact. Rick, the guy in the laundromat who is kind of creeping on Evelyn a little bit and watching the drama on the TV, he's in another show we like called I Think You Should Leave, Tim Robinson.
True.
His real name is Biff Whiff.
I know.
I didn't
I saw
know
that on the IMDb.
Biff
I
Whiff.
I was debating
I was
whether
like, is
to
that
bring
his
that up.
character? No, that's his name. Okay.
Yeah, Biff Whiff, absolutely
Yeah.
stellar name.
That was just a thing I wanted to mention. The next thing.
Absolutely.
Here, the Daniels started their career with one of their first projects was Turn Down for What? The music video. Which was
Classic.
really popular at the time. And one of the main actresses in that music video is in this movie. I want you to guess
Really?
who she is. What character? I don't think you'll get it.
My only guess is that maybe it could be Jenny Slate,
Jenny Slate?
who played the lady with the dog.
No, that's close. She was on Parks and Rec.
I have seen her in many things. She was
yeah.
also in
very funny.
Venom.
Venom, was she?
I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure.
remember her in that. Anyway, the Turns On for What actress, they recasted her in this. I guess they liked working with her. She was the dancer on the drama on the TV in the laundromat.
Oh,
She got hot dog
interesting.
hands
That's
at one
funny.
point.
That's funny.
That's
Pretty good.
that was
I
an
mean-
interesting little thing I saw.
I feel like that's one of those things. I feel like that's happened somewhat often before, where you hear that the people who made one thing were
Yeah.
also involved in this other thing, and you're like, "That I didn't know that," but in a weird way, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like them doing Swiss Army Man and them doing Turn Down for What.
They're
makes
gonna
a
like
lot of
keep
sense.
these actors and actresses they like working with. Obviously, I think
Mm-hmm.
the most obvious director who does that is Quentin Tarantino, who just has like
Mm-hmm.
his friends in every movie.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of directors that do that. I know, who am I thinking of? I know Edgar Wright does that. I know Martin Scorsese does that a little bit. There's Christopher Nolan is
Oh, yeah, he did
notorious for doing that.
The next weird casting choice, I can fully see the vision, and they may have written this character for this actress. But Aquafina was originally
That does not surprise me.
up for Joy.
That does not surprise
Not
me at all.
No, it didn't for me either.
Kind of fits the character somewhat perfectly.
I can
honestly.
see that they might have written it for her.
Yeah,
But I like the casting of
Stephanie
Stephanie
Sue
yeah,
does like
a
an
really good
insane job.
And she
like-
got that song, combo for the movie.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, we talked a little bit about it when we watched the movie, but when Jamie Lee Curtis won Best Supporting
Yeah.
Actress for this movie, a lot of people were like, "She's good,"
But she's
But,
not in it
like,
that much.
yeah, and I kind of got that same vibe watching it for the first time, where I was like, "She's good,"
Yeah.
but like, even just looking at this year's Oscars, I'm like, there's a bunch of like supporting actresses and supporting actors where I'm like, who didn't win, where I'm like, I can absolutely see why they could, like, how they could be nominated and win this. But with Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm like, I guess I could see how she'd be nominated, but I'm not fully sure on the win, especially when in the same movie, Stephanie Sue had a performance which kind of,
Killed it.
in a way, blew
Yeah.
me away.
Another thing about Jamie's character, all the other characters in this movie, for the most part, have a very simple name. You have Joy, Evelyn, Waymond, even things like Becky, Chad, who is the Rakakuni guy, Debbie, Rick. Then you have Jamie Lee Curtis's character, whose name is Deirdre Boberdi, spelled in the most insane way you can ever think of it. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that was a choice, but I feel like it was. It's just something that I noticed as well. Not that that's related
Yeah,
to the Oscars. Just a thought that I just had.
I wouldn't be surprised, I'm just guessing here, if that's like kind of a commentary on like a lot of like Western but generally
my
white
thought as
people
well.
I don't know how to pronounce these
Yeah.
names. And it's like, it's really not hard
No.
if you just try.
Yeah.
Or ask. Like, you can also ask. So, yeah, kind of giving a little bit of that perspective.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Which I already kind of ran into at the beginning when I said Michelle Yeoh played Evelyn Wang, and then I was like, or is it Wong? But, like, all I can do is guess, you know? If they were here, I'd ask. But yeah, I do think that is interesting. I didn't realize her name was Deirdre Bo Bierdra.
Oh, is that how you say that?
I don't know.
Beardra.
That was just a guess.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's spelled the same way.
I mean,
Deirdre
even Joy's girlfriend's name is Becky Sregor.
Sregor, yeah. That must have been an intentional choice. Because those are insane names to choose.
Yeah.
And they don't even need last names. To be honest, they don't.
They don't. You got any more fun facts?
Oh, I have one more. The rock scene, kind of at the end of the multiverse, where they're just rocks, and they finally you have like this super intense montage, literally like strobing lights and insane things happening and fighting. They're pinatas one second, they're in like ancient China another second. All weapons and costumes are changing rapidly, and then you get this moment where they're just rocks and it's silent. Originally they had it dubbed and they had voices and they could talk, but
interesting,
Michelle decided that it would be better to have it just fully subtitled.
That was Michelle Yeoh's.
Yeah, it was her idea
input?
that they just change it to subtitle, and you get this break in this piece where you're just reading. And I think even Olivia, when we were watching it, commented on it, saying this was like a nice break for a second. You just feel very
especially
peaceful.
Since so much of the movie is fast-paced, next thing. There's so much happening.
And they focus on that one shot for a really long time. It's like a 10-second shot, if not longer.
Yeah. I truly think that is... I don't think that this is like a new opinion,
no.
but like I think that's the best part of the film for me.
I think so,
or at least the part that
the best sequence.
Yeah, the best sequence. It really kind of like glues it together a little bit, because that is kind of going back into what I was saying about like this film being very anti-nihilistic.
Yeah,
where it's like, even in a universe where we are rocks, maybe in a way, like, because you could argue that life doesn't matter and that it's like not worth living because you're literally just a rock, nothing's happening. But like, you could argue that existence might even be the best one.
It was one of the better ones, definitely the one they needed in that moment.
Exactly. It's like they both talk about just like how and it's in the middle of them fighting.
Yeah.
It's not like it's during the resolution. It's in the middle of them fighting. They go there, and they're just like, wow, when we're here...
we can talk.
We can talk, and none of that matters.
Yeah.
Because, like, we're just rocks. So it's like, it really goes back into that of like, it at surface level, it seems like it doesn't matter and isn't worth it. But, like, really, as soon as you look a little bit further, like... it's it's just as worth it as any of the other ones, which is really nice. But yeah, love that. I love that it's quiet. Love that it's still. And it's just so nice.
Just
and we
great.
go back there a couple times, which is nice.
Yeah.
But that initial bit when you first go there is really awesome.
How do you feel right now about doing your hot takes?
Hot takes?
Yeah. Give me your hot take.
Sure. Well, I know you had one, so you do yours.
So I had
first.
2 written down. One we kind of already discussed, which is Jamie is a questionable Oscar winner for this. I think she did great. I think other people did really good too. I can see how she could win it, but I understand the criticism. The other one here, which is my only real gripe with the movie, and it's small, is how do you get these Bluetooth devices that connect you to other universes across the multiverse, because Alpha Wayman just shows up with them. Like, the idea is that you inhabit the consciousness of yourself from another multiverse, right? It's like if there's a universe where you're a turtle man, and it travels to your universe right now, it's in your consciousness, so it's controlling your body and stuff, right? And it's getting your memories. That doesn't mean you can transport Bluetooth headsets across these universes. How are they getting those? He just kind of shows up, and then all of a sudden, all the people from the Alphaverse, I think, or the people who were on Jobu's side, who were also fighting Evelyn, they all had those Bluetooth devices. Where did they get them from?
Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense to me.
That is interesting. That is a little bit of a plot hole.
But it's small enough that you don't really think about it too much on the first watch.
One thing that does make me think of, though, is that at the beginning, for like a large portion of the film, I thought that main timeline Waymond was Alpha Waymond. But he had been, or not was Alpha Waymond, but was aware of the multiverse.
Yeah.
But had
was
decided to. Yeah, and I thought that's kind of like what the googly eyes were, and that was like him slowly like
bringing her in.
I don't know, conditioning her to bring her in. Yeah, and I
kind of thought the
was,
same
like,
thing on the first
watching
watch.
her and like had decided to stay with that Evelyn to make sure that she was like. Anyway, I thought that it wasn't that. I'm kind of glad it wasn't that. I'm glad that it was kind of just that was just Waymond.
Yeah.
Especially at the bit where she's like kind of zoning out at the tax table, and he's like, "Evelyn, what are you doing? Evelyn,
and he
what
tries
are
to
you
give her
thinking
right in
about?"
that first shot. He tries to give her the divorce papers.
Yeah, but I mean when they come back after
everywhere.
Yeah, it's right when everywhere, or no, right when everything pops up at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because he says, "What are you thinking about?" and then everything pops up, which was I kind of liked.
I liked that
but
shot.
like in that moment, I thought he was saying, "What are you thinking about?" because he was like, "Whoa, something's happening." She's like off. Maybe she's like starting to become aware of the multiverse.
Not
but that's
quite.
not what it was. And I'm glad it wasn't that way.
So, what's your hot take?
So mine is less of a hot take and more of just like something I wish. A part of me wishes I knew more about, but a part of me is like, I kind of like not knowing anything about it. And that's that they constantly go back to this shot, or like a series of shots, from this moment where Evelyn and Joy are sitting in their van truck thing. And Evelyn is clearly kind of like a stone wall, and Joy is very clearly upset. And they kind of constantly go back to that as like somewhat of a significant breaking point, but we don't really learn what happened.
So on a rewatch, what I kind of get in that sense is that's when I think Joy came out to her mom. And you can see like the tension in the stonewalling, and that she's not getting the reaction, like a good reaction from her mom.
Okay.
That's kind of my guess as to what it is from the context clues. I could be wrong on that though.
That sounds like it makes the most sense.
Yeah, it was like
that's
an
just like
important
one
event
thing.
That kind of
I constantly thought we'd see how that played out, and then we just kind of never did.
That's true, actually.
So that was the one thing that I was like, I don't know how that ties in, but you are probably right.
But it's like this family seems to have a lot of important conversations in that van. That's when Waymond decides to give her the divorce papers too. It seems that maybe the only time you can get Evelyn's attention is when there's nothing else to focus on when you're in the van. Yeah. Is my kind of understanding of their family dynamic.
Yeah, when there's nothing else to get distracted with.
Yeah.
That's the only time they can talk. Because, like, oh man, it's so aggravating. It kind of honestly, have you seen Turning Red?
I have not.
Okay. good film. But like
Apparently.
similar to that movie, there's like just moments where you're just so upset with the mom, and you're like, just listen a little bit. Like that happens a lot in Turning Red, and in this one at the beginning when Joy is literally following Evelyn around, trying to get her attention, to try and like talk to her about something, and she's been saying it for like 5 straight minutes in the film, and then Evelyn changes the subject to something else for like the 20th time, and Joy just says it again, and then Evelyn is like, stop trying to change the subject. And you see Joy's frustration, but even as a viewer, I'm like, you are projecting so hard. And like you get a lot of that also with Evelyn's dad. What was it, Jong?
Yeah.
Or Gong. Where she realizes there's a moment like at the elevator right before she punches Deirdre, where her dad says something like, I forget exactly what it was, but it was basically like, I should have always known that you were never gonna
fail.
Yeah. And she's like, you're wrong about me. And that's when she decides to prove herself. And like, it's kind of her having to realize,
instead of what she could be, but she finds out what she is.
Yeah, she realizes that like everything that everything that negatively impacts her from the way that her father raised her and how her father treats her, she first of all realizes to reject that, and that she doesn't have to let that dictate her life, but then also that she's doing the very exact same thing to her daughter. And that's the other massive theme of this film, is like covering intergenerational trauma and how like it's so hard to break a cycle, but like how important it is to do so. And they handle it about as perfectly as possible, because I mean, especially in that parking lot scene, it's pretty perfectly done. Like Joy is just, you can see it in her body language that she does not want to leave.
Yeah.
She does not want to cut ties with her parents. Like she wants desperately for her mom to say, no, I love you, I want you to stay, please stay, like you are important to me. But she
can't.
But she does not have the capacity, because it seems almost like she's gonna say that early in the film when she's like, I have to tell you something, and then she's like, you need to eat healthy or you're getting fat.
And I think that's
it's like
some of her generational trauma, where she can't express her emotions at all to her family.
Yeah, it's like how she says, or Becky says to Joy, she's like, I thought you said that when she says things like that, that's how she expresses love. And it's like, that
Time
shouldn't be how, but that kind of is. Like, she wants to tell her daughter that she loves her. The only way she knows how is to do so the way her father did, which is to point out how to
be better
than you currently are. And to then see that shot almost the exact same way.
Where she's at the bottom of the stairs and he's on the stairs, kind of.
I'm talking about in the parking lot.
Oh, I was talking about when he or Gong Gong was talking to her in the laundromat.
Oh yeah,
and that's the same position where he is when Joy is trying to introduce Becky, and Evelyn doesn't say that they're dating.
Yeah,
they redo that shot.
Yeah, and then there's also the shot of Becky being accepted by Gong Gong, which is very nice. Which I think is in the
last
the vaping outside.
I think so.
Timeline.
Yeah, that's in the Chinese New Year timeline.
I'm not sure. But the parallel between her Evelyn chasing after Joy and being like, "Wait, I have something to tell you. You're fat," but then also then later her chasing after Joy and Joy just breaking down, and then finally Evelyn being like, there's nothing I want more than to be here with you at this moment.
That's nice.
Regardless of how awkward it is or how like bad things are right now, I will always want to be. That's the quote is, I always want to be here with you. And that's really what Joy
was looking for,
and what Evelyn has been looking for.
And
what Wayman's been looking for.
And that part hits hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard hitting part of the movie. I have some trivia here for you.
All right.
To pivot once more. I want to see.
And then I think we'll get into
rapping. Adam's got a freestyle that he wants to put down, and he's going to do that only if he gets all 3 questions right.
Oh, wow. Wait, so if I win, I have to do a rap?
Yes, you get to do your rap that you've been trying to put out.
Why would I not just throw the game?
No, you want to get 3 in a row so you can rap.
I think you're assuming I really want to rap.
Well, you've been bragging about this freestyle for months. I really want to get this on the pod. That's what you said to me before we pressed record.
I'll try in the trivia, and if I get all 3, I'll rap. But if I get one wrong, I ain't rapping.
Okay. All right. Question 1. Most of the red carpet scenes are from Michelle's actual career. What movie premiere can be seen in the movie? Real life movie premiere that they took footage from.
There's not a shot that I get this, so I'm just going to...
It's a red carpet premiere?
Wait, do you mean like what was the footage actually from?
Yeah, so that timeline where
premiering?
It's from Michelle's, like, real Michelle's life, where she's famous, and on the red carpet. That red carpet footage was largely taken from her actual career in real life.
Yeah.
What movie premiere
but are
is
you
it taken
talking
from?
about, like... Because I'll give you 2 answers.
Okay.
One, there is a point where they show a poster, and on the poster it is this movie.
No, it is the footage was taken from the premiere she was at when they took the footage from.
Okay.
Like, she was
then
one of her
in that
movies.
case, I'm going to say Crazy Rich
That
Asians.
is correct. Ding, ding, ding.
Whoa.
Crazy Rich Asians.
That's one.
Number 2. This is a multiple choice question. This movie was shot in less than A, 40 days, B, 60 days, C, 90 days.
Any of those answers is kind of shocking.
Right?
I'm going to go for the classic safe bet in these scenarios and say 60 days, the middle option.
That was a bait. The answer is actually 40 days.
Whoa!
So 40 days, and I think the last day was lockdown, pretty much.
That's insane.
They finished wrapping right before or right after lockdown, and then they just went right into editing throughout lockdown.
Crazy. That's lucky.
But yeah, the shoot time, the Daniels were praised for making quick changes very fast, having a very tight production schedule, having everything planned very carefully.
And I usually mention this at the top of the podcast. I didn't. I'm not too worried about that, though. I can mention it now. The budget was less... on the high end, they usually give a range.
Yeah.
But on the high end, $25 million.
Was the budget?
Which is low.
It's very low.
Especially for how good it looks and how good it is.
Well, maybe a chunk of that
some movies are
taken out of the CGI budget because there's, like, no CGI.
Yeah. Well, so many movies now are like... I mean, obviously, there's movies that are like $300, $400
What's that
million
soundstage that
budgets.
Mandalorian's shot on?
The volume.
That thing must cost $1 million a day. The way that these budgets are laid
it's like... Exactly. Well, that's the thing. They have hundreds of millions of dollars budget, and they look like garbage. This movie, less than $30 million, and it looks phenomenal.
What was the revenue on this? Like, what would it make?
The box office was $143.4 million, which is a little lower than I expected.
Yeah.
I thought it would have made a little bit more, but that's still obviously an insane success.
Yeah. And hey, when you guys talk about make more $10 million movies, this is, the Primo example.
Yeah, this is like a good mid-budget film,
Yeah.
which is kind of what's been lost at the most recent Oscars. I forget who it was, but someone was doing a speech where they talked about like
Pedro Pascal, right?
I think it was like a producer or an editor or something.
Never mind. Maybe I'm not thinking.
Or like
of the
maybe
same
it
thing.
was. I forget who it was, but like someone gave a speech, an acceptance speech, where they were like, mid-budget movies don't exist anymore, and they really should, because right now it's all just these massive blockbusters that get so much money. They also make so much money. Sometimes they're making less money.
Yeah.
because people are sick
Which,
of them.
that's good.
Which isn't a bad thing. But like, or there's indie films.
Yeah.
But there's not really an in-between. But I think we're kind of at this point right now where indie films are like ramping up. So now we're getting these like mid-budget indie films,
I think a lot
which
of
are kind of
those
filling that gap.
A24 movies. I don't fully know the budget breakdown of them, but they feel like they should be mid-budget movies, like stuff like Pearl and their
horror
series.
budgets tend to vary. Let me check. I just picked a random A24 movie
Green
at
Knight.
random. Yeah, like Minari, which is an incredible film, and I believe it's A24. The budget was $2 million.
Yeah, so this is like the studio that's pumping out your mid-tier budget or mid-budget movies, and they're doing insanely well as a studio. Like bangers.
Sorry, I was just gonna say Past Lives, another Oscar movie this year, $12 million budget. The Holdovers, $13 million
so you
budget.
See these movies
like
cleaning up.
Yeah, and it's like, man, I'd like to think that studio executives will see that and be like, maybe let's change our
now
ways.
We know at least
but,
one studio does see it, which is nice. But Disney doesn't. If we're looking for Disney Star Wars mid-budget, I don't think we're gonna get that anytime soon.
Which, like, I understand that there's these executives who are like, we're Disney. What, you think we're gonna make a movie that doesn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars?
What do you think? We're gonna make a movie that doesn't suck balls?
Yeah. But it's like, yes. Like, before, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's still existing, but before Disney bought Fox, Fox was doing Fox Searchlight, which was like their kind of lower to mid-budget films, and it was doing well.
And it got bought out, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, Disney bought Fox, so now they own it. I'm pretty sure they're still operating Fox Searchlight, but like, why Disney isn't going like, let's make a mid-budget animated film. Let's make a mid-budget
of the movie reviewers that I follow online was talking about there's a large movie or Hollywood conference that happens every year where they talk about upcoming trends and like where you should be steering your market and things like that. And one of the big things that they had to sit down and talk to producers and like big Hollywood people about this year is that animated movies and like anime and that kind of thing is actually insanely popular with audiences right now. And like making those types of films and the audience just didn't believe it. So there's this whole presentation and conference just trying to convince studio reps of what the consumer actually wants, and they still won't believe it.
Dude, that's insane. So I mentioned the Drew Gooden video that talks about the Avatar live action show. In that video, he also talks about how like Netflix and like streaming services, kind of one of the main appeals of them when they were coming up was that it was like, we're not going to get in the way. We're not going to like get our hands in the process. We are just going to give the creatives room to do their thing, which is be creative. But now that's kind of not true anymore, and we're just kind of back to the same old. But like, believe it or not, when you let creative people do the thing they're doing, obviously with like help and input, but like not with studio suit executives who have like your thing is running a business. Your thing is not writing the story and figuring that out. Now, I know people would argue, like, yeah, but to run the business, we need to know...
But you don't.
We need to know what the trends are, and what we need to drive it in a way that is consumer optimal.
Yeah.
And it's like, shut up.
Back onto the trivia.
Yeah.
One last question for all of the marbles.
Well, not really, because I got the second question wrong.
For 2/3 of the marbles.
Yeah.
Evelyn is seen talking to Waymond several times throughout the movie in Mandarin. What language does she talk to her father in? Cantonese. That's a ding, ding, ding for you.
That is a benefit of watching with subtitles, because I did notice that it would say in Mandarin with Waymond, but then in Cantonese with
Gong Gong.
Gong Gong.
I think they were trying to show off like the difference in upbringing and stuff between the two of them. It was like a deliberate
I was
choice.
gonna say I don't know too much about the cultural significance, but I could imagine that is kind of to show Gong Gong's like kind of disapproval of Waymond in a way.
So
in a Waymond,
Mandarin is like the official language of China, and it's the most widely spoken. But Cantonese is like the southern section of China. They mostly speak it, particularly in like Hong Kong. Mandarin is a simplified version of Cantonese, and Cantonese is more traditional.
So that would make sense, especially coming from a father figure.
Yeah, they're talking to him in like a more traditional sense. Yeah.
Which is also interesting because when Joy tries to say, "Hey, Grandpa, how was your flight?" and instead says like, "How is your airplane?" or something. And then he responds back saying, "Your Chinese is bad."
But he says it in English,
not
right?
saying your Cantonese is bad. Well, no, he says it in Cantonese, I'm pretty sure. But like, he doesn't say your Cantonese is bad. And he also doesn't say your Mandarin is bad. He says your Chinese
just in
is
general.
bad. Which kind of, I think, also lends it to that like, if he is someone who speaks Cantonese because it's more traditional and then doesn't respect someone who speaks Mandarin, to be like, I refer to Cantonese as Chinese because in my mind, that is the language.
And then he maybe sees Evelyn in a similar light that Evelyn sees Joy, where she's disappointed in not knowing as much Chinese and stuff. I'm kind of putting that perspective on her. But in the same sense, Evelyn doesn't speak as much Cantonese as her father. She speaks more Mandarin. Anyway.
Yeah, and then also doesn't speak very much English because she's she's stubborn, I think.
Yeah, probably. They moved there.
Like, we have Google. Which, like, I'm not saying she's stubborn because she's not learning.
Well, it seemed like her English was
very
fairly
difficult.
good, but they made it a plot point that she didn't understand some of the bigger words, which is fair because I think if I was sitting in an IRS and they started talking to me, I would zone out and not really know what they're talking about either.
Yeah. As someone who's only spoken English my whole life, I also wouldn't really understand.
Anyway, that's the trivia. You got 2 out of 3. Pretty good. And I set you up on the middle one. Yeah.
I did get one of them wrong, meaning I don't have to do the rap that I prepared months.
That's going to be
for,
in the reshuffle episode. It's canon.
Yeah. All right. Let's maybe get through a couple notes here. I made a note saying that Amazon Prime had unskippable ads that made me want to kill myself.
I hate that they do that.
It was just the one.
It
was just the one, but it pissed me off.
I've watched episodes of like an hour-long TV show with Sid where there's been 3 ad breaks and each one was a minute long.
Guys, let me ask you this. What is the benefit of streaming?
That's a whole other conversation.
As opposed to cable?
We'll get that in a bonus episode, I think.
And also, Calder and I have talked about this a million times. Streaming it's deteriorating. I wrote this is definitely a multi-time watcher for sure. I'm definitely going to watch this movie many times again.
It's a go-to.
I wrote this was upon like kind of my second watch / skim through. I love that when at the end they're doing the things where like everyone's coming together in all these multiverses and all of these things are like colliding, it like goes through them faster and faster and faster, and then the one right before Evelyn and Joy hug is two planets colliding.
Oh yeah, I caught that too.
And it kind of just like, first of all, it's cool,
Yeah.
but it also kind of it kind of like jerked me into this thinking of like them hugging is just as significant of an event as two planets colliding.
Yeah.
Like,
It's rare.
the impact is, you could argue that
It's
like,
not that rare.
oh, in the grand scheme of things, two planets colliding, blah, blah, and it's like, yes, but like, also in the grand scheme of things, kind of another theme throughout this is that nothing matters, but that can be taken different ways. Like Jobu Tapaki's talking about nothing matters, as in like nothing matters, like none of this has any effect or impact, so may as well just do whatever and not care about
any
anything.
universe she destroys, there's an infinite amount more to choose from. Any
Yeah,
choice
and
she
nothing-
makes
nothing
doesn't
matters, so
matter
why
because
care?
another version of her is making a better choice or a worse choice. She can be anywhere,
Yeah.
anything. Why would any of it matter?
Exactly. But then at the end, Evelyn says, it's okay, nothing matters, in the way of like, so why
Yeah.
not,
Choose happiness.
like, if nothing matters, kind of everything
Yeah.
matters. It's kind of like the inverse of, well, if everyone's special, no one is.
I think you made
But
that
it's-
joke
but
in
it's-
the movie, with Incrediboy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Syndrome.
Syndrome, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, it's kind of the inverse of that, where it's like, well, if nothing matters, then kind of everything
Yeah.
matters. Because everything matters relative to who it is
makes
impacting.
sense.
Like what, like, it matters to those that it is affecting. And I think that that's great. And I think that the planets colliding, it's like, what, everything is made of the same stuff. Truly, what is the difference between two people hugging and two planets colliding? And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. Did you have any other notes?
Obviously, it's a little different. I do have some questions, and then we can ranky. Unless you had something else.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hit me.
All right. You already asked this, and I didn't really answer it, so I'm going to ask it so that I can answer it and you can answer it. But what was your favorite chapter or act of the movie? Everything, everywhere, or all
My
at once?
favorite has to be... Oof. I really like the first act. The
Yeah.
first act, I think, builds the world so well. It leaves so many questions that you want answered. It develops the beginning of the multiverse stuff, and then it throws you back into the chair after psyching you out a little bit and giving you all these questions and like complex characters, and it throws you back in that tax chair just to start the second act, and you're thinking to yourself, this must be like the 3/4 mark. No. We're just getting started
Yeah.
with this movie, and they hit you with the big
Yeah.
"Bwah," and the giant letters come on, and it's everything. What are you thinking about everything? And I just thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it.
True. Yeah, I do think that the first one is very good. I guess technically there's 4 kind of segments, because there's also the bit before everything pops
Well,
up,
that's what I'm talking
right?
about. The intro to the movie.
Wait, are you talking about pre-everything, or are you
Oh, I'm
talking
talking
about
the everything act, not like the 10 seconds before that.
But there's more than 10 seconds, because everything pops up after they've already been to the
Yeah,
tax
I'm talking
office.
from the beginning of the... Sorry, I'm talking from the beginning of the movie to the tax office, where they do the first little introduction to the multiverse system, and then back to the tax chair.
Okay.
Okay,
That's what
okay,
I thought.
same
That's what I thought. Yeah, I think my favorite is
That's
where.
solid too.
Because I think
It's also
because I think that goes from like I think what happens in Everywhere is just the constant exponential development of
and it's like
that's
the
happening.
rapid pace up until her mind breaks and she's everywhere, right? Is that that's not
it also includes the rock bit.
yeah, that's
it also
true.
includes the everything bagel.
You know what I think I'm going to shift into Act 2 as well. Act 2 is very solid.
I think it's just the one with the most substance. I think All at Once kind of has a disadvantage because it's really just the wrap up, which is nice. But
it has the most like I guess tear jerking kind of parts. No, actually that's Act 2.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I think Act 2 is like a heavy
Act 2 is a heavy hitter. You're correct. Okay.
All right. Next question. If you could choose one kind of multiverse, I guess this is just asking what in another way, what one decision you've made in your life you would change to. Let's do two different questions. One, what multiverse would you access to give yourself a special skill?
Ooh.
And let's just assume that you keep it.
I mean, we can be kind of ridiculous with this and like cheat this system and just be like, I would go into the one where I can like I have a really good luck somehow. Like I'm very lucky.
Or say I'd go to the Alpha Adam universe. where I am able to go to all of them.
I think probably the one where I am the smartest, because I feel like I could do the most benefit to our world if I was the smartest version of myself possible. Right? Because in their case, the smartest Evelyn was able to invent multi-dimensional travel. I don't know what I'm capable of. Not that I don't think, but she didn't either. So, you know, how many benefits to the world can you create if you're super smart?
Yeah. I would go to the one where I'm a Jedi.
You know what? That's valid too.
Mostly just because, one, that kind of covers the like warrior basis, which I think would be really cool. To be like someone who can throw down some cool fighting moves. But also, I would be like super zen and in tune with like the Force, which would be rad. Which a part of me's like, that wouldn't be one. But there's one where Evelyn has biceps on her pinky
fair, and
finger.
hot dog
So I think, that's okay. I guess I would just have to do something insane to access.
You'd have to create a timeline at some point, or humans would have to evolve the Force.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, the Force is in all living things, Matt. It's already there. I would just need to learn to access it.
You're so right. I have glossed over that. Actually, it's the midichlorians.
The other question would be, what is this one we don't have to answer, but what is one decision that you would change to like alter the trajectory of your timeline?
Like any point? Or does it have to be something I did?
I guess it could just be something goes differently.
I think I would choose the one where capitalism doesn't enter late stage capitalism, where it just stays at mid to early capitalism days. I think that's where I'd pick.
Nice. That's a good one.
I think that solves a lot of issues.
Yeah. Now I'm rethinking.
Yeah, yours was Adam's was just the one where he gets the most money because he wants to be a billionaire. No. It's his life goal.
I was gonna say something like I would have gotten a job when I was living in Toronto or something, like something small, just because I'm like that probably would have had a good effect, or something like that. I don't know, but now I'm like no, I'd probably like like to be me in the universe where, I don't know, where like a certain you know what? Where like cars were never invented.
I wouldn't pick that one.
Like, I would. I want to go where like.
Oh, I see. But
actually, that's my hot take for the episode.
Okay.
I hate
That's
cars.
valid.
I don't hate cars. Like the idea
But
of
how
a
they're
car.
implemented here.
How they're implemented into society and how everything is a
I would
parking
agree.
lot
I
and
100%
everything
agree.
is a
If you talk to my
road
sister,
and everything's
she
a
knows
highway.
that I just make constant jokes about, I wish this was a parking lot. But yeah, in that world with
Yeah.
no cars, maybe there would be more public transit, train systems.
Well, yeah, get me more
Yeah.
trains. Honestly, I'd even be down for us all to still ride horses. I know
I do
there'd
not
be poop
want
everywhere.
that.
Trains really is the option.
Yeah,
is
I want
the best
trains
option.
everywhere.
Just put
I
trains
saw
everywhere,
someone pitch
guys.
a
Have
train
them
that goes
running
between
all the
Toronto,
time.
Ottawa, Montreal,
Oh, yeah.
down to New York or something, and then back to Toronto. And I'm like, what a magnificent loop.
Yeah, it was literally I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my geography's completely off, but I'm pretty sure that also like hit Chicago.
Yeah,
or
it was like another
something.
major city.
And like it was literally like a square. And it was like it would probably be pretty easy to do as well. And it's like, why
it'd be pretty
not?
hard to
And
do.
it's like, well, it might get in the way of our highways,
Anyway.
guys. It's like
That's a good universe.
it's just frustrating. Yeah, get rid of cars.
Yeah.
All right. I have a little something to play. Calder did send in. I'm gonna share my screen.
Oh
here
boy,
with Matt
do I get to
so
react to
that-
this? I thought this was going to be in the post edit. This is going to be a long
Well,
episode.
because I listened. I don't
Okay.
think it'll be that bad.
Maybe.
Well, maybe it will. Calder's not here to rein me in. So I'm gonna play this. I'm not gonna talk over it or really comment on it much. I'm just gonna
Alright.
let it play, but I do want us to react to it. So here's Calder sent
like
a
a
little
React
blurb of his
YouTuber
thoughts on
right
the movie.
now.
Here it is. Here we go.
Hello, boys, and here's my little segment for the Everything Everywhere All at Once episode since I am AWOL. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it's one of the most surprisingly successful movies in a really long time. This movie making
a
over
good
$100
take.
million and winning Best Picture, plus a bunch of other Oscars,
take.
is pretty crazy. And I think it's incredibly creative, and like the pacing's great. But in general, I kind of feel like the ending kind of falls flat for me. Even the
a bad
first time I
take.
watched it, I was kind of underwhelmed by the message of it just kind of be nice to each other. It makes a movie that watches as a very
know about that.
complex film feel a little shallow and like it's treating you with kid gloves when the movie is like pretty grown up and complicated. And it's kind of a movie. It's kind of like
It's just heavy breathing.
throughout the movie, it's basically like nothing really matters, and then at the end, they're like, okay, well, the thing that matters is love, and it will fix the world. And I don't know if I fully agree with that, even though I think everyone could be a little nicer to each other. It just feels a little like, what are we doing here, boys? Is this really the best and most poignant thing we could come up with? As for list position, I think it's a bit of a middle packer. After looking at the list, I'd say maybe one spot below Brazil, because I enjoy them about equally as much. But I think Brazil kind of never lets up in its tone and message, even to the bitter end of it. And the ending of Brazil feels like the only kind of honest ending to that movie. Whereas I feel like there's maybe a little dishonesty in how the Daniels see the world in the ending of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't think you boys are going to agree with that, but that's why I'm the wild card, baby. Baby C out. Fuck you, bitch. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say fuck you.
That Bermuda
bitches.
wind was coming in strong.
I'm peeing right now. You like that?
I like how he said, I probably shouldn't say fuck you,
Yeah.
and then instead says bye, bitches.
And then says he's peeing.
And then says he's peeing. All right, so I guess actually before we go ranking, let's do an Adam Driver casting. Who would you cast Adam Driver in here?
I
Honestly,
think
I feel like
Raccacoonie.
the Raccacoonie guy.
Yeah, he's
is
really the only non-important male role.
Yeah, I could see him maybe playing like a fun, like gender swapped version of Deirdre, like Jamie Lee Curtis's character, in like
thought about
some
that,
way.
yeah.
But
I thought also maybe the dog girl,
maybe
just to be shocking.
yeah, I think that probably the Raccacoonie guy is the best option. Okay, can you still see my screen?
I can choose to.
Just
Now I can.
because I've got the list up, so you got to
also
help
have
me
the list
rank
up.
this. The reason I wanted us to listen to what Calder said
Yeah.
was so that we could take his thoughts into consideration here. We'll try to represent him as
where
well
is
as possible. Brazil is at 36.
Now, I think that Calder's take about the end of the movie is valid. I think it's a little off in the sense that the majority of this movie, like 95%, I think is extremely well done, especially considering the budget. I'm not going to put my 2 cents into where it should go too much because this is your boy's list.
No, but you're the guest host.
I don't think that matters. Did Olivia and
be
Hillary
honest.
rank things? To be honest,
they helped with the ranking.
This is so counter to what Calder put it at, but I would put this in like the 5 to 7 position.
Yeah. So around like Spider-Verse, Booksmart, Incredibles.
I think it's below Spider-Verse.
Okay.
I think it is. I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love. I've seen Dune, Star Wars New Hope. I think this is better than 7. So maybe
I also like this better than 7.
I would put this at like the 10 position.
Okay. So yeah, much different than what Calder said. So here's my analysis on what Calder said, since he's not here to defend himself. I do get what he's saying about it kind of ending. He said in a dishonest way. I don't know if I'd say the ending is dishonest, but I do think that they did go for a happy, satisfying ending.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I don't think that's necessarily I don't necessarily think that it's like a perfect ending, like in the way that like I don't think they ended perfectly happy. I just think they ended having like learned something, and I do disagree with him that the message is to be nicer to each other.
Yeah, I don't think that's the message.
Yeah,
I'm looking at these characters who are essentially gods, and they can be anywhere or anything at any point in time. Nothing in any particular moment matters, because they could be doing something different or better or worse, but probably you'd choose to do something better. So any in particular universe you wouldn't be grounded to. Your family wouldn't matter, your loved ones wouldn't matter. You couldn't really be capable of love unless you chose to be happy in the moment or happy with one particular situation and make the best of what you had. And that's really the only, I think if you're in that insane position, obviously this isn't realistic, but if you're in that insane position of being able to be anywhere, everywhere, all at once, the only choice that you can make that doesn't end in a joy situation where you just experiment until you die is you just stick with one no matter what and try and be happy as you can in that, which is kind of the way that you got to live your actual life.
Exactly. It's not a, hey, everyone be nicer to each other.
Yeah.
It's the only way to live is to find meaning in your life.
I think
like,
they could have done something with exploring what goes beyond the bagel, if there is anything, but that kind of gets into the what happens after death potentially kind of situation. And as far as coming up with a resolution that's fairly satisfying, I think they did a minimum of a B job.
Yeah. I'd say they did better than a B job.
I think so too, but Yeah.
So here's the trouble, is that you and I both want to rank it quite high. Calder wants to rank it
Quite
much
low.
lower. So you said 10.
I don't
honestly
want my
probably-
actual input to sway you guys too much.
Your input is going to make an impact, but like I will take what you're saying into
Yeah.
consideration. We'll have your opinion weigh about 20%,
My
I guess.
position-
25%.
I think is he wants to put this below a lot of movies. I think this is much better than.
Yeah, I agree.
Much better than. And I get the criticism, but I don't think the one critique, not that he had that much time on his honeymoon to come up with like a full list of things to critique about it, but I feel like that one thing doesn't put it down in the 35 section.
No. So my thoughts right now are taking, because I'd probably agree with you that it should go up here range.
Yeah.
Like Big Lebowski, Alien,
Yeah.
maybe under Dune 1. Like just in this kind of
I'm thinking, yeah,
8 to 15 section.
that's exactly right. Yeah, what I think.
But that's quite a bit higher than where Calder
I
put it.
know.
So I think we should probably go a bit lower, but I feel like it's gotta go above Elf.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I like Elf, but like I feel like it's gotta go above Elf. I feel like it should go above The Thing, honestly, because honestly,
Yeah.
similarly to The Thing, like a lot of practical. What? Olivia just pointed at the list. What?
Sorry, it's gotta go above Surf's Up.
That's what I'm.
Okay,
I wasn't gonna
I'll
say it,
kill
but
ya.
that was my thought too. If this
I
doesn't
might
go
pull a
above
knife
Surf's Up,
out.
I will die.
So I'm one of the few that would say Surf's Up should go above most movies.
Yeah,
But-
it's good, but
My only worry is that we're gonna put it high, and then for a reshuffle, Calder's gonna be like, "I gotta move that shit down."
I don't think you have to worry about that if that happens.
Yeah,
it's
I don't have
okay.
to worry about that.
But I think like a
Um,
realistic place to put it is definitely above Elf, and
I'd say above The Thing. Dune 2 is
I haven't
where I
seen
start
Dune
to be
2
like,
yet. But in my head, the movies I have seen here: Star Wars, Harry Potter, Surf's Up, Black Klansman, Step Brothers, Big Lebowski. If we're looking at that section, I feel like it's in the Big Lebowski to Black Klansman section at least. So like 11 to 13.
yeah.
Step Brothers, very well made. Also kind of
I
has
just
a weird ending.
unfortunately have to take Calder's absolute nuke into consideration here.
Yeah.
Because the
The
gap
difference is
between
insane. I was not expecting
Yeah.
that. But
that's like a
goes.
25 position thing. So like
yeah.
if we go halfway, that's around like the 23 area.
Like he wants it below Brazil, right?
He wants
37.
it, yeah, below Brazil at 37. If we moved up to halfway between that and what we're saying, yeah, that's around like
Shiva Baby.
Shiva Baby, Close Encounters of the Third Kind area, which I think this movie is better than both of those.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think maybe what we do is put it right above Elf, because I feel like we simply must. Not because Elf is bad.
My
just to be
minimum,
clear.
I think, is not that this matters, but where I would put it at the lowest is like Game Night, where I thought Game Night was really good. But
Yeah, same.
I still, in my head, it's much higher than that. But
For me, honestly, like
Iron Giant,
I see it as like kind of similar to Iron Giant quality. I think Iron Giant should be a little higher, if anything.
I think
Actually,
agree
maybe
with
not. But
I would put Iron Giant about where it is.
the top of this list is like pretty strong.
It is, yeah.
Is the thing.
Like in no way is this
Um,
better than Waves in my head, or Spider-Verse.
Yeah, me
I think
either.
Incredibles is better.
I
I think it's
think
better
that
than
the-
7, but I don't know if that's a hot take.
Yeah.
And I've seen 7 5 or 6 times. Not quite 7 times yet.
Yeah, I also think it's better than 7. But to do a compromise, I think maybe we put it just above Elf, I really want to put it above The Thing, but I feel like since we're putting it so much higher than where Calder said, we should at least give him that.
Okay. If it comes into a reshuffle, you call me for phone a friend.
Yeah, I'll call you for reinforcements.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually we're going to end with putting Everything Everywhere All at Once at 20 on our list, below The Thing and above
That's
Elf.
tough.
Lower than I anticipated, certainly.
Yeah.
But we had, the guy that had 1 minute on the podcast, we got to take him into consideration, at least 50%.
You know what? Maybe 60% because he's on his honeymoon.
That's true.
Maybe actually
Hoping
20% because he's on his honeymoon.
I was going to say, hoping he's having a good time, but he did let us know
He's
he's burnt to a crisp. So, all right. I think that's going to end the episode.
All right.
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once at 20 on our list. Top 20, still pretty good. The movies above it are very good, but, up in the air. Let us know what you thought of the film. Highly recommend watching if you haven't already. You should have if you've listened to this.
Enter the comments and fight me there, because that's where I live.
It's true. All right. Thank you, Matt, for being such a great fill-in guest host. I know you were just going to be a guest and you had to do a little more than that.
No
I
problem.
appreciate you filling in.
It was a fun time. Next time I'm going to
You're a
be bringing
natural.
Parasite with me.
Yeah. If we do Parasite or
Yeah.
some other movies, we'll bring you on so that we can have a little trio on here. We'll make this duo a trio.
It's a reference to
All right.
something. Alvin and the Chipmunks.
That's a reference to Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah. All right.
I guess. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll be back next week, I think, with either The Incredibles 2 or Across the Spider-Verse. One of the two. But we'll get into those. See where those rank. Thanks everybody. We appreciate you. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.